Part 6 of Max's broken heart story. We had discussions with the kids after we talked to them about what Max's heart looked like. We moved on to what our lives might look like when Max was born. We discussed with them that we would probably be staying at the Ronald McDonald House in Cleveland, because if you've ever had a baby with a baby or a child or even a family member in the ICU, the NICU, the PCICU, you know that somebody can be stable and go to critical real fast. And being over an hour away was just not an option for me. I had to be there with him, just like I would be there for any of my kids day in and day out if they were in the hospital. So we discussed that with them. And then I told them, I'm going to have to step back from a lot of things. I worked for the Board of Elections as a voting location manager, and there were several local elections coming up soon. I had just worked one in November before I found out Max's diagnosis, and we were working towards one in May. But Max's due date was May 27th. So I'm like, okay, well, I can still work the election even if I'm 9 months pregnant, whatever, no big deal. I also worked for a cheer gym. My daughter and my son were both cheering, and I was also the team mom for my son's cheer team. I also homeschool my kids. So my schedule was very intense and very full, and I would say yes to everything. There was not ever a point in time where I would say no. I feel like if my schedule was filled, I would somehow force something else into it. So I had to get used to the idea that I would have to say no to a lot of things. Not only that, I would have to let go of my jobs for a while, and I wouldn't know how long, because Max's situation and his diagnosis is a lifelong diagnosis. It wasn't something that was just going to be fixed immediately and then we go home. There was no fixing this. There was only palliation, doing as much as they could to get him to maybe heart transplant one day. So I had to share the news with my employers. I ended up sharing it with my boss at the cheer gym first, and I was a wreck. She was very understanding. She was very graceful, and she said that I would have a place if I wanted to come back, or if I could come back in the future. And that seriously took off a load on my shoulders. My children have been involved with the gym for almost 6 years now, and it is like a second home. So for us, taking them out really wasn't an option, because it's just something that has been part of their routine for so long, my daughter's almost entire life, that like taking that away from them would be a real huge shakeup on top of all of this other stuff that we're changing too. And then I had to call my boss at the Board of Elections and let them know. And then I had to inform the co-op that we are part of for homeschool that, we would be done at the end of February, or the end of March, really, but that we wouldn't be finishing out the semester with them. And then I had to share that with them why. But I had already started Max's Facebook group, sharing a bunch of the information, so I was getting more comfortable with sharing with other people outside of our family. I think my boss at the cheer gym was the first person I told outside of family and close friends. And then once I did that, I became a little bit braver about, making other changes in our life. I end up not feeling Max one night for about 6 hours, and I had been feeling him quite often. And so I got really nervous, and I called in to Cleveland Clinic main campus, because that's who my providers are. And the lady that answers the phone, who is a doctor, it was like 9 o'clock at night. She was like, well, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if you should come in or not. That's up to you. You can come in if you want to. But I said, well, I live over an hour away, so I don't want to make that trip unless I absolutely need to. And I just want to make sure that, like, this is not my first kid, but I'm super high risk. And so is my son. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And she was very abrasive and very rude. And I end up just, hanging up with her. And instead of going to Cleveland Clinic main campus, I went to Mercy again. And this time they take me right up to the maternity ward. And I start crying as soon as I sign in because I just feel like I've already lost Max. I feel like he's already gone. And that something's not right. Because I feel like every appointment that I went to after his diagnosis, I was continually getting more bad news. We had been told that he had a single vessel umbilical cord, which meant that he could most likely be growth restricted. It also is pretty common with single ventricle babies, and also very common with twins. HLHS is also more common in twins as well, and most common in boys. So we're over here thinking, okay, well, maybe we lost a twin early on in the pregnancy, because none of what's happening to Max makes any sense. It's never happened to any of our babies. Sorry. So I go to the hospital and they check Max and his heartbeat's fine. The nurse was absolutely amazing. She was so understanding and so kind and so empathetic. And I just remember leaving there feeling so comfortable and so thankful that I didn't feel like a burden, like I had to the person that I had spoken to on the phone. That's about a week before March 25th. So on March 25th, during the day, I had been having consistent contractions. Because I'd given birth early before. I think I was 32 weeks at that point. I was extremely nervous about doing it again because Max needed to stay in my belly as long as possible to get as strong as possible, as big as possible, for him to have a higher chance of survival with the surgeries. And I was really concerned because my contractions continued to pick up in intensity and get closer together. So when my husband gets home, I tell him about it, and we decide to go ahead and make the trip to Akron General. And my godfather comes and gets the kids, and we make the trip to Akron General. I call in to the care coordinator first, and she said, I'm going to call, and I'm going to make sure that they know that you're on your way. You should absolutely go in. Better be safe than sorry. And so I went in, and they monitored me, and I was in early preterm labor. I was dilated to a 3. I was having intense contractions, and they wanted to stop that from happening. So they ended up putting me on magnesium sulfate, giving me a steroid shot, giving me a penicillin shot until they got the strep B results back. And they monitored me for a while. They talked to the maternal fetal medicine doctor at Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Ahmed. He's just amazing. Like, he is so good. I wish I could have him consistently all the time. He's just the best of the best. He wants me to immediately get transferred to Cleveland Clinic main campus. So they call an ambulance. They call a transport team, but it takes them about 4 hours to get there. In the meantime, I'm still on magnesium. I'm still sick and having contractions. And when the care team gets there, I tell my husband to go home and go to bed, and that he could come back up to the hospital in like an hour or two, and that I would be okay for him to go because he'd fallen asleep. At this point, it's like 2 a.m., so he needs to go home and go to sleep. And then I get in the ambulance, and they take me up to Cleveland Clinic main campus. It took about 45 minutes to an hour to get there, and then they take me straight up to the SDU. Go ahead and go to part 7.